Hi everyone, this is Jacqueline Scott with Module 12, my case study for EDL 850. First, a report of exactly what happened needs to be identified. I'm Keith Sample, principal for 3 years at St. Regis School, and I have built a strong rapport with the school community. Financial support at the school, we have state funding, but it's pretty small. And then we have 2 annual fundraisers that really help and give extra money to our school. We do a candy and gift wrap sale and a spring fling race activities. And this provides basic supplies for the teachers, and then any leftover money contributes to purchasing new computers or needed software. For the last 3 years, PTA, school faculty, and staff purchased new computers, so we have 20 computers for teachers and students to utilize in the computer lab. The next 2 years, our plan is to purchase new software programs. We have Mrs. Lynn, our library media specialist and computer lab teacher. She works with me and teachers to prioritize the desired software programs for the computer lab. She really does a great job of getting teacher voice in and to figure out which are the best programs. They're aligned with many of the grade levels and the different contents, instructional objectives. We purchased software programs and cataloged with the emerging technology items that we already had, and teachers utilized the computer lab for computer assisted or computer literacy instruction. And there was a schedule developed by Mrs. Lynn to help teachers follow and to get into the computer lab on a consistent basis. After 4 months of the teachers using the computer lab, there were some teachers that approached Mrs. Lynn to implement the new software programs in individual classrooms, supplement their classroom activities as independent centers with having these software programs in their computers, and asked for Mrs. Lynn to copy new software programs. So Mrs. Lynn purchased blank CDs, and she copied 4 new software programs for 2nd through 4th grade and distributed those to the 3rd grade teachers for 3rd grade. Mrs. Williams is a 3rd grade teacher, and she was delighted to receive the copies and was really excited that Mrs. Lynn was willing to make those copies for her. Mrs. Williams originally did buy 2 programs with her instructional allocation funds. Mrs. Brandon also purchased 2 others as well from her instructional allocation funds, but she refused the copies and voiced her concern about copyright violations to Mrs. Lynn and the principal, me. After Mrs. Brandon met with the principal, Mr. Sample, who is myself, addressed the situation with Mrs. Lynn the next day. Mrs. Lynn expressed how she is saving the school money and is providing more technology opportunities for students and teachers. Mrs. Evans, the PTA president, helped make copies of the new software programs, and Mrs. Lynn believes no one will find out or care about the copy infringement, especially since we're such a small school. I told Mrs. Lynn that she is violating copyright laws and potential consequences could take place for the school and school district. I requested Mrs. Lynn to collect all the copies she made and stop making more. Secondly, it is essential to identify the legal and ethical issues involved in this situation. So Mrs. Lynn's actions, there's potential harm from stress and anxiety for Mrs. Brandon. She privately confronted Mrs. Lynn about copyright violations, and she was put in a tough situation with colleagues because she wants to do what is right, and her colleagues are actually really excited about these copies, but she knows it's wrong. So she's worried about professional relationships, especially as this is her first year at the school. There's potential stress for myself. I have to confront Mrs. Lynn, and I need her to comply with federal copyright laws, or my school and the district may suffer consequences and have a bad reputation from this. Ethical issues. So my responsibility is that Mrs. Lynn may not have known of federal and state law, and that is completely my responsibility. School and district policies and procedures, it doesn't seem like she is aware of at all. So I should have effectively communicated to ensure implementation of laws, rights, policies, and regulations. were in place to promote student and adult success and well-being. Mrs. Lynn's responsibility and the other staff members also have some ethical issues involved. They didn't know the laws. It doesn't seem like they knew the laws, and that's my responsibility, but they should have still sought principal's approval for copying software programs. Legal issues: infringement on federal law, 1976 U.S. Copyright Act and its 1980 amendments. Mrs. Lynn copied software programs without the owner's permission and distributed them to teachers. There is no breach of contract or harassment or discrimination known. Third, clearly summing up the situation is important in understanding the big picture of what has happened. So at St. Regis School, the proper communication and school level governance were not in place. Therefore, copyright laws were violated due to copying software programs for teachers and students to use in the building. Fourth, understanding the facts will help me brainstorm all possible solutions. The people involved. So myself, third year at St. Regis School, I'm not originally from the area, so I've worked really hard to establish positive relationships with teachers and residents of the community. And at the end of my second year, I gave out an end of the year survey, and it showed there's more supporters than resistors in the school community. Mrs. Lynn is a media library specialist and computer lab teacher. She enjoys helping teachers and students. Her actions and decisions are centered on teacher voice and input, which is great. And then we have Mrs. Williams, a third grade teacher. She's an experienced teacher and she's been at St. Regis her whole career. Mrs. Brandon is also a third grade teacher. This is her third year as a teacher, but first year at St. Regis. And then her personality is she wants to take initiative to do what's right. We have the PTA, Parent Faculty Committee, and their goal for the next 2 years is to purchase new software programs to support the new computers in the lab. And then there's other teachers and staff at St. Regis that are involved. So, place is St. Regis School. It's a small town, rural area, 25 miles from a large city. The city is unknown. It feeds into a high school in this large city, and there's 2 teachers per grade level, 1 special education teacher assigned to grades K through 4, and then another special education teacher assigned to grades 5 through 8. So there's just 2 special education teachers total. The program is a grade K through 8 public school. It services about 420 students, and there's general and special education programs in this school. Fifth, there are many stakeholders that will be negatively impacted from this situation. Negative impact on stakeholders, there's potential to reflect poorly on the school, on the principal, myself, on the school district, and we could have legal liability with this situation. Direct impact on teachers and students. Mrs. Brandon has been put in a very difficult situation. Mrs. Lynn is actually now in a difficult situation. She violated copyright laws, potential legal liability for her. Other teachers and students, now they do have limited access to software programs. They need to visit the computer lab, no access in classrooms unless purchased. Communication with stakeholders. So we need to communicate with the principal. We need to communicate with the superintendent, school district lawyers, possibly, and then Board of Education, possibly. Additional information: does the school district have written policies with clear parameters that outline the use of computer software? Was Mrs. Lynn informed before the copyright violations? Does St. Regis train teachers and staff on district policies for use of all technology? More information would be helpful in this situation. Sixth, I identified and evaluated all possible options that surround this problem. So option 1, take no action or make any decisions and let things play out. The pros would be the school continues normal operation and school does not take any responsibility. The cons of this approach would be if the publisher discovers a copyright infringement, it could lead to an infringement claim in court, financial loss for the school district, negative impact on school's reputation. It could influence the programs and services to students. There could be a loss of confidence and trust between school and school community. There would be additional stress and anxiety on involved administrators and staff, and Mrs. Lynn could be held legally accountable and liable for her actions and decisions. Option 2 would be to take a proactive approach, communicate with all necessary stakeholders, and develop an ongoing professional learning plan for all teachers and staff. So the pros of this approach would be to make things right by destroying all copied computer software programs and prohibiting future copies, professional development and training for teachers and staff on federal law, district policies, and guidelines for the use of all technology, and that would include programs, computer programs, hold teachers and staff accountable for adherence to copyright laws and policies. The cons, publisher could find out still and sue for copyright violations, and there's more responsibility and tasks given to the school's administration. Option 3 is to take an intermediate strategy and consult with district superintendent and district lawyers to make a joint decision on how to respond and move forward. So the pros of this would be multiple perspectives from stakeholders to make the best decision for the school community. You get a legal standpoint on how to deal with this type of situation and if the publisher should be contacted and informed. And it eliminates rash decisions, especially on my part. Cons, there's a financial cost for legal advice for the school district. Mrs. Lynn could lose her job. Legal approach isn't always the best approach for community involvement in relationships, especially because the PTA is involved in this situation. It may reduce parent and community involvement, and especially the PTA support. Seventh, evaluating the pros and cons of each option led me to making an ethical decision based on what's best for all stakeholders involved. And that was the biggest thing was what's best for all stakeholders involved. So I picked option 2. I, the principal at St. Regis School, will take a proactive approach and consult with the necessary stakeholders. I choose option 2 because making the situation right would be to take responsibility for not ensuring all staff are informed of district policies and guidelines that establishes appropriate use for all technology, including computer software. The school needs to be in compliance with federal law and develop equitable school resource plans and to apply laws, policies, and regulations for the current and future success and well-being of each student and adult in the building. I would help Mrs. Lynn destroy all the copies of the software programs, confiscate the rest of the blank CDs, and prohibit additional copies to be made. It is a responsibility of the school to advocate for equitable access to educational resources and opportunities that support the educational success and well-being of each student. Therefore, the school needs to seek solutions to allow students to have access to technology that supports and enhances their academic experience. I would inform my boss, the superintendent of schools, of the situation for full disclosure. There are no secrets here. Ongoing professional development about Creative Commons, trademarks, copyrights, and fair use would be implemented throughout the year to effectively communicate district policies and to ensure compliance from all teachers and staff. This approach would be the most satisfying resolution for all stakeholders. Mrs. Lynn had additional responsibilities other than her library media specialist role and was not properly trained and informed of the importance of copyright laws. Lastly, I determine an action plan in implementing my decision to ensure positive outcomes. So first, immediately after my meeting with Mrs. Lynn, I would call the superintendent to inform him or her of the situation. Second, I would locate district written policies and the Copyright Act and meet again with Mrs. Lynn to highlight the relevant policies and regulations that were violated due to her actions. And because she was she was really wanting not to change or stop making copies. So I would address that. Third, together we would destroy the copies of the software programs. I would confiscate the rest of the blank CDs and prohibit any future copying. Fourth, I would require teachers and staff to read the software copyright page and understand the licensing restrictions. Fifth, I would form a team of teachers to become experts on copyright laws and policies to develop an ongoing professional learning plan to train all teachers and staff, and they would do that with me. We would take a team approach by being thoughtful and purposeful when addressing the school staff while focusing on the specific needs of our school. 6, professional learning would be carried out and will include federal and state laws, along with district and school policies and procedures about the appropriate use of technology for teachers and students. 7th, I will monitor and ensure adherence to laws and procedures by being present in all areas of the school, hallways, classrooms, and making sure that laws and procedures are being carried out. And then plan B, if this doesn't work, if my action plan does not work, I will have to seek advice from my superintendent and district lawyers on how to approach this situation. So thank you for watching.